On the eve of our wedding, my fiancé, who was supposed to be abroad on a business trip, hid the fact that he had gone to fool around with his ex-girlfriend from me, and I, as the bride-to-be, only learned of this news the day before our wedding. I accidentally saw him shopping with his colleague Tracy Lewis at a jewelry store. I stood not far away, watching him put the diamond ring on her finger amidst the sales clerk's teasing. When confronted, he said, "I just helped her put on a ring. That doesn't prove anything." Tracy then posted a picture on Twitter of the ring on her ring finger with the caption, "I love anything you give me. I hope one day I can say I do out loud. Eve, I'll pick you up after work." Frank messaged me as I was about to leave work. This was the first time he contacted me since our fight over the ring incident. I knew this was his way of backing down, but I chose to ignore it. Issues of loyalty aren't something that can be resolved with a few words. I used to be easily appeased. Every time we argued, he would ignore me for a few days. Once my anger subsided, he would reason with me, and I, always swayed by his few words, would look for problems in myself. It happened so many times that I started doubting myself, even thinking there was something wrong with my personality. And this time, he tried the same tactic to make up. He gave me the silent treatment for 3 days, preferring to stay in the lab rather than come home. Suddenly, I felt tired and unsure of what I was holding on to in this relationship. I took a deep breath, deliberately ignoring his messages, and focusing on work. When I left the company, I saw Frank waiting for me on the roadside with a bouquet of flowers. I wanted to pretend I didn't see him, but he walked over with his usual poise. He seemed to have completely forgotten our argument from 3 days ago, speaking as if nothing had happened. "Eve, my car is over there. You're going the wrong way." I glanced at him indifferently and walked on. Frank followed behind me at a leisurely pace, staring straight at me. "Eve, Mom is waiting for us at home for dinner. Can we talk about this later?" I stopped and turned to look at him. "That's your mom, not mine. We've broken up, so I have no obligation to please your parents anymore." Frank's family was scholarly. His parents were strict with rules, especially in education and etiquette. To cope with their rules, after a busy day at work, I had to put on a show. Because of so-called love, I endured for many years, but I didn't want to pretend anymore. "We were about to get married, and you say we're breaking up." Frank got agitated, his deep eyes showing a mix of anger and disappointment. "I always thought you were different from other girls, rational, but I didn't expect you to be so unreasonable." I laughed coldly. "What do you think a rational girl looks like? Should I clap and cheer when I see my boyfriend wooing another woman? I told you, it was complicated. With so many people teasing, she was embarrassed. If I had refused, wouldn't that have made things awkward for her?" He didn't realize where he went wrong. To be precise, he thought he did it right. I looked at him. "Yes, that was your choice. I have no right to interfere. Similarly, you have no right to interfere with my choices." Frank impatiently scratched his head. "I've explained this to you several times. Why do you insist on dwelling on this issue?" That day, when Frank put the ring on Tracy, I was having dinner with my colleagues, and quite a few of them witnessed the scene. Frank used to pick me up after work often, so everyone knew he was my boyfriend. When they saw that, their looks at me were filled with sympathy and awkwardness. I desperately tried to cover up, wanting to speak for him, to say that things weren't as they seemed. However, before I could say anything, Tracy tiptoed and planted a kiss on his cheek. Frank froze for a moment, but didn't push her away. That was when I knew it was over between us. Now, seeing him angry, I felt no waves of emotion, only a slight urge to laugh. "Since we can't stand each other now, there's no point in holding on to it. Let's not waste each other's time," I said, feeling incredibly relieved. Last month when our parents met, they suggested we get the marriage certificate before the wedding, but I insisted on having the wedding first, so even if we broke up now, there wouldn't be any legal or property disputes. I rummaged through my bag and handed over the keys to his house. "I've already moved out my things. If anything's left, just throw it away. Here are the keys." Frank didn't take them. He was angry. Just as he was about to speak, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Tracy's name clearly. He hesitated a bit, then looked up at me. Being close, I could see the name flashing on his phone screen. "Answer it. Maybe she needs something from you." After a moment's hesitation, he answered the call in front of me. Frank talked to her, his gaze fixed on me the whole time. I turned to leave, but he suddenly grabbed my wrist. I didn't know what Tracy said, but I heard him nod and agree. "Okay, we'll be there soon." After hanging up, he said, "Tracy wants to apologize to you. If you don't want to meet my mom, that's fine, but you can't refuse Tracy's invitation, right?" Hearing this, I suddenly felt he was so unfamiliar. Although he wasn't a mama's boy who depended on his mom for everything, he respected his mom, Luna Connor, the most. I thought he would always put Luna first in everything, but I never expected him to say such a thing. When did Tracy become more important than Luna in his heart? I couldn't break free from his grip, so I had to follow him to the appointment. I got into his car, catching a whiff of a faint jasmine scent. A small, delicate sachet hung in front of my seat. He had once said he didn't like any dangling ornaments in his car. Even the aromatherapy essential oil I made for him was probably thrown somewhere. "Did you buy this?" He glanced sideways, casually saying, "Why would I buy something so girly?" After saying that, that, he seemed to realize he had said the wrong thing. His expression tightened as he explained, "This was a gift from the shopkeeper when Tracy bought some sachets. She didn't like the smell, so she gave it to me." I didn't respond at all, just looking outside the window. We arrived at the restaurant, and Tracy, who was already seated, was startled when she saw me but quickly changed her expression. She greeted warmly, "Eve, come on." Frank and I sat opposite her, and the waiter brought the menu. Tracy said, "Frank, Eve likes seafood, so I'll order some." "No." Before she could finish, Frank immediately interrupted, frowning seriously. "Don't you remember you're allergic to seafood?"